button. Pulling up my notes. Corley Moore, Firehouse Vigilance. It is weekly scrap number 80. Tonight's guest is Jeremy Donch. He is a second-generation firefighter with over 25 years in the fire service. He is a husband, a father of 4, but most of you probably know him as the guy who started National Fire Radio. I hope everyone watching and tuning in live is ready for some nerd talk about the culture and history of the fire service. Jeremy Donch, it is my pleasure to have you on today as the guest of Weekly Scrap number 80. Welcome, my brother.
Corley Moore, thanks for having me, man. This is absolutely... I've been looking forward to this since you and I spoke, and I am just excited to be here tonight because you and I have gotten to know each other now through a couple conversations. We actually had you on our show last week, which was a lot of fun, and that will be dropping this week. And that was a 2-hour episode we did with you, and it was awesome, man. Top shelf. I love it. So thank you for the extended invite to having me on tonight, and I am floored to be here, especially with the lineup you've had over the past year. I don't belong in this seat, but man, I'll take it. Let's roll.
I appreciate that, but yes, I'm just looking forward to this conversation because it was so good the first go around. To everyone watching live and those tuning in, if you have questions for Jeremy or myself, please do not hesitate to type them in the comments so I can throw them out there. Did I miss anything in your intro that you want to throw in there? I always like to ask.
No. I mean, that's good. There's so much will come out tonight, I'm sure, but you hit everything that needed to be said for sure.
Awesome. Then I'm going to kick it right out the gate and get straight into it and say National Fire Radio. Brother, talk about an explosion, storm, whatever you want to call it. Talk to me about how it started. What drove you into starting it?
This crazy little project we started about 3 years ago now. I turned 40 years old. I said to my wife, I wanted to do something more in the fire service. I felt that I wanted to start giving back more, doing more. And I also thought that there was a void, a hole in the fire service where too many guys were leaving the job. And when I talk about the job tonight, it's volunteer, career, paid on call. I don't care. It's the fire service, and we all love it. I don't put titles to it, and so on. But I felt that too many people were leaving the job disgruntled. Too many people were leaving the job with their stories and taking them with them, and nobody was capturing them. And it's so important to pass it along in this fire service that we have to educate the next round of guys, the next generation. And when people leave and they take their passion and they take their stories and they take their experiences with them, and we're not filling that void, we're going to lose. We're going to lose every single time. And so for myself, my wife said, listen, if you want to do something, go do it. And so I thought that I wanted to start a podcast to capture those stories so I can do my part in documenting those stories of those that came before us that have served and have, put their time on the line so that we can learn from their experiences. And what a better way to do that than the kitchen table talk or that bumper talk. And so we crafted a podcast around that. And that was about 3 years ago. I did that with Rob Ridley and Sebastian Rollo. And since then we've had a couple more people come on. But those two were there from day one with me, and they still trust me to this day to do this wild ride. And right. It has become one hell of a ride, man. It's been a lot of fun, and we've been able to do so much with it, and I fall in love with it every single day when I'm out there working on it.
No, and I'm going to jump ahead of my notes here and say, outline it to me in your own words, kind of, because I'm going to try and encapsulate here: interviews, podcasts, gear reviews, showcases, apparatus innovations, skill videos, live broadcasts on locations, the live fitness workout videos with 555. Just go ahead.
You know what it is for me is I really think that the fire service has changed so much, and with the fire service, society changes, people change, our attention changes, our the way we dissect and review content. I hate to say it tonight, but everybody knows this, but nobody's reading page 17 of the trade journal anymore. Where the attention has to be short clips that are on the channels that matter. People are scrolling social media, so we need to put the good content there, and we need to formulate that content to capture the attention of the next generation. For so long, I mean, I'm a student of the magazines, of the trade journals growing up. I mean, when I was 16 years old, 18 years old, I was reading those magazines 4 or 5 times a month, cover to cover. I couldn't get enough of Fire Engineering and Firehouse magazine. And I think we're all students of that, right? And so as you grow up through that, but I have to tell you now, I'm struggling reading those magazines because, one, I don't have the time to dissect a magazine. And then two, there's so much more ease in getting, there's less friction to get content today. And so that was all part of the design of what we do. And that was to find a delivery message that works, right? We wanted to take all this content, whether it's tradition, culture, even tactics, strategies. We've done roundtables, live roundtables on YouTube where I brought in some guys across the country and put some slides up there of animated fires. I mean, the list goes on because, one, my attention span is like this short, man. And I'm like, I always want to try something different. But the goal of that is to try different types of content to see what hits. Because at the end of the day, this is to see how we can design a way to educate this next generation.
Right.
And so I got to see what sticks. And so the fun thing is for us is, as a scrappy social media and podcast platform, I can pivot and change very quickly, and we can try different things and throw it against the wall. Some things stick, some don't. And so you'll see content that we throw out there that is our apparatus innovations, right? So take that, for instance. I'm a huge apparatus nerd, love fire trucks, love truck committees, love designing them, love knowing what the capacities are, capabilities are, the list goes on. And so with that comes the apparatus innovation segments that are quick, 60 to 90 second clips that educate the end consumer as to, some things that people are doing across the country, because how they do it in California is different than Iowa. It's different than Maine and everywhere in between. And so we're able to share what we call tips, tricks, and hacks.
Yes.
And so never before have we had a platform that I know of that people were able to share these types of things with everybody. And so for me, what's exciting is when we go somewhere and we see something that we influenced. It's incredible, the impact, right? So we know that sticks. We know that content does very well. And truthfully, where this is really headed is we're gonna build a kingdom of National Fire Radio where we want to be the go-to place to spread the good word. We want to be the place where, people look up to the type of content we put out and understand that we're doing it for the betterment of the fire service, to promote the good people in this job and promote the good messages that need to be promoted.
Dude, I love that. That's part of my notes here. I'm going to catch up with the crowd because we got people chiming in. Robert McClelland, my man from Florida, he said, I'm ready for some nerd talk. John Shostet said, I have been looking forward to this. This is exciting. Passing out some likes here. Give me 1 second.
Nice. I'll take it.
Ryan King is excited for more knowledge bombs. Robert Ridley, we know that guy. He said, hell yeah. Good stuff already from Danielle. Crew First Culture said, solid brothers doing solid brother things.
There it is. That's
So
a silly catchphrase. That was 2.5 years ago. A buddy of mine came up with that silly catchphrase because truly in the beginning of all this, it was funny. It was fun to do this stuff. And it was like, you guys are a bunch of solid brothers. You're doing solid brother things. And it became a joke. And so we actually we themed it up for a little bit and pitched it up and hit it out there. It was pretty fun.
No, it's great, man. And that's the thing is that captures the essence of it. You know what I'm saying?
We are losing the fact that we're supposed to be having fun. I mean, I know this is business, and I know that, we have the responsibility, and it's a massive responsibility. But man, if we're not laughing and having a good time while we're doing it, if we're not, building each other up and talking about how good the job is, whether it's training, whether it's a good first due job, whether it's a good pin or a rescue or whatever we're doing, we can't forget that a lot of the tradition and values of the fire service is based on that camaraderie and brotherhood. And that is that we enjoy, we pick each other up and we have a good time. And so if we're not having fun and we're not having some smiles along the way, man, I think we're doing it wrong.
No, one of the things I always say, if you can ruin this job, if you can make people, barring, terrible calls and dark times. Of course. But if you can ruin how fun and great this job can be, you're a special kind of butthole. And I'm usually talking about company officers in that sense, but it can also be anybody who can ruin a station.
and that's all it takes too, right? And we get so much of that, and every firehouse has got one or two, and you can't, we got to be careful. I mean, there has to be, and I'm a big fan of the informal, social control in the firehouse.
Sure.
I think that needs to be more prevalent than it ever has been. I think there needs to be some more social control, and that comes down to that senior man position, which we talk so much about, and so on. And it's such a critical spot in the firehouse, and for so much of that, I think these days that's starting to disappear, and that's a scary thought. That's a scary place where we're headed, where the informal control underneath the line officer is starting to dwindle, and that's a concerning factor for me for sure. And we talk a lot about that.
No, and just the kind of the emulation of switching from the firehouse to more like a corporate, office space as opposed to the house of the firehouse. You know what I'm saying? Because
I agree with
the
you.
fire office, so to speak.
Yeah. Well, and that's it. I mean, I understand, as it's finding that fine balance, right? I mean, we're not going to be able to wear hip boots and smoke cigarettes and sneak a pop every once in a while. Like, you just can't do that anymore. And I get that, right? But there has to be that balance, right? Because what influenced me in the fire service was watching my father and then watching his generation and really understanding the service and what these guys did and how much they had a passion for the firehouse. And I was raised in that. And I'm a firm believer that, you settle your differences, we move on. We address the problem, we hold people accountable, and we enjoy this job. We enjoy it. And when we lose track of that and it becomes too corporate, too stuffy, too safety oriented driven, and I can get hammered on that all night long here. But I think everybody, if you're reading between the lines of what I'm trying to say, is we have to be able to bring it in line, and so that it walks that line, because everything we do, we walk a fine line. We walk a fine line between staying, going home. We walk a fine line of being hurt and doing a job solidly and making that push, right? We walk this fine line in every single thing we do in the American Fire Service. And so we have to be careful, because that line sometimes can skew. And so you have to know how to navigate that. Yes. And I think part of that comes down to people skills and the way people carry themselves and who they are. And I think we are often too wrapped up in our own stuff these days, and we bring it with us. And when we get into the firehouse, we bring that stuff with us, and that interferes the decision-making or the buy-in from the second you walk in the door. Nice.
No, I don't think that's a pretty good rant right there. I really do. Dude, that was great.
But I'm a firm believer in that. Like, you got to buy in. When you're there, you're there. You need to be dialed in. We can't worry about, in the volunteer sector, you can't worry about all the other things that are going on in your life when you're there to do the job. In the career firehouse, you got to leave your second job at the door, your second, third, and fourth wife. You got to leave those problems at the door, because you got to be dialed in. When you're not dialed in, it suffers from that second you walk in the firehouse. If you're not dialed in, things start to suffer.
Oh, you're not. No, I love that. Now, I'm going to ask you, I'm going to get personal and say, do you have a ritual or anything that you do before you walk through the door to kind of clear your head and get your mind right, or anything like that?
No, man, I am so excited to get to the fire. I love being at the firehouse. I wish I could be at the firehouse more. I don't have any, I don't have any rituals or anything to do that. I mean, I really am excited when I get to the firehouse. Right and it, and I find that my time, I get distracted. I mean, I'm not perfect, and I'm not sitting here tonight preaching that, this is the way it has to be. But these are insights that I have, and things, ideas in my head that I think are starting to muddy and interfere what we do.
Yes.
But I'm just as guilty as all of it. I mean, we all have faults, and there are times that I should be taking those extra few minutes and working with that new kid. But hey, I got to run, or I got something else on my plate. I got to get this done. And so I find myself struggling, and so it's finding a balance of that struggle. I'm a real conversation type of guy, and I hate fluff. I hate sugarcoating. I'd rather, put it up front, be accountable for it, talk about it, talk in reality, things like that. Because too often, I mean, I even think we talked about this the other night when we talk about training, and we always train for the optimal experience of 6-man engine company when you only ride out the door with 3,
right,
but you're training with 6. Like, it's not realistic. And so for me, I think we need to paint a real picture of today's firehouse, today's fire culture, and we need to hold one another accountable for it.
Nice. And I think
Sorry.
no
Crickets on that or what?
no, I was gonna say because Pablo Ganier chimed in and said National Fire Radio always puts great stuff out there. Can't fake passion. Solid work. And I think that's what we just heard was just a tirade of passion. I mean, in a nutshell. It's awesome, man.
How do we not all have that?
Now, dude, that is a great question because one of the number one questions I probably get through social media or through phone calls is, I'm fired up. I want to be awesome. I want to train realistically, but X, my captain, my chief, insert whatever, holds us back. What can I do?
All day long.
Yeah.
All day long. Corley, I get the same messages. And I just told you off air before we came on, I have 2 DMs that I have to get to where it's probably a younger member somewhere in the country is looking for some advice because they're in a tough spot. They're in a department where they have a chief who doesn't have any experience or fires, but he wears the bars, right? He wears the bugles, and so he makes those decisions, and he's holding guys back. You have guys that are asking for help as to where to find more like-minded people because they're struggling in their own department because they're the only one that's willing to take a 24 out back and throw it while everybody else doesn't want to. These are real conversations that are happening. And I have to think that tonight, whoever is watching tonight are like us. They're dialed in and they love this. You know how many guys aren't? Do you know how many people just go through the paces because they have to? And we want to get them dialed in because when you came into this, chances are you were pretty dialed in. And so what happened, right? Did you fall out of love with it? Are you struggling with it? Do you have a culture that hasn't pushed you? And so you've become complacent? I mean, your platform is complacency, right?
Oh,
fighting complacency. And so we need to, as managers, as culture in the Firehouse, we need to navigate and figure out what drives people. And then we need to promote them to be the best they can to help fuel the culture. And I think what happens is, and a lot of times in the conversations I have with people, it's very simply this. If you're absolutely in love with it and this is what you want to do, don't sacrifice your own work ethic and morals for the others.
Nice.
Don't ever sacrifice something for other people if it makes you better. Because as soon as you stop making yourself better, or as soon as you stop the hustle for yourself, everyone loses, right? Because what happens is I find it's infectious. You get a guy that's pumped up and he's put on an engine crew or a truck crew, and next thing you know, those guys are like, hey, kid, chill out, man.
You're making us look bad.
Relax.
Right.
What he's got to do is he's got to be able to know how to navigate that conversation, right? Which is challenging, right? Now more so than ever because shit. I mean, excuse me, but that's just people skills 101, and people are starting to lack that these days too. But they have to navigate that conversation, and then they have to find a way to not surrender their beliefs. They have to find a way to push themselves and challenge themselves and stay engaged even when the others don't. Because I know this for a fact, when you're engaged, it's infectious. And the guy that's riding the fence, some people can be swayed to be lazy and complacent, and then some people can be swayed to get off their asses and start helping and pushing. And so, if you're infectious and you're the type of guy that can talk it up and you're the type of guy that causes excitement and you're the one that says that we need to be doing more, one by one, you can change that culture. It's not going to happen overnight. It takes time, but you have the ability to change that culture. So never sacrifice your own beliefs and work ethics for others.
Own beliefs and work ethics for others and those that won't. Dude, that's, yeah. I have a great question coming at you from the audience, and this is off topic, on topic, but I don't want to let it scroll too far away.
No, go ahead.
It comes from Gustavo Salcido, and he said, in your opinion, what does the modern senior man look like, and how do you bring that back in young fire department with early promoters? Oof. It's like a curveball coming.
Yeah, great conversation piece. I think the modern senior man today is somebody that's in tune. I always find I ride that position now, right? So I'm that senior guy in my firehouse, and I carry a big stick, and I have the ability to maintain control in a lot of ways on the social level, and I know how to talk to the officers and navigate the conversation between the line officers and the backstep firemen, the young kids, and then and so on. So I think the modern senior man today has to be dialed in, has to be in tune to the job, has to know what the latest and greatest is too, because you have to be a student. And when this goes off on a huge tangent, but You
That's
have
the
to be
scrap.
dialed in to understand what's happening today, and you have to know how to relate to that 22-year-old kid and that 65-year-old guy, or in a volunteer house, that 100-year-old guy. You have to be that person that can facilitate the conversation. And you also have to maintain that line. You have to know and be able to create that distinction between right and wrong, between authority and discipline. And, you know, what I find a lot of times now is our management styles across the board, whether it's the senior man management style, whether it's the line officer management style, could be the command staff, right? What I find is lack of confidence leads to terrible leadership. And so when you have a lack of confidence in skills within somebody, so if you have somebody, a chief or a line officer that hasn't been to a lot of fires and now they carry some authority with them, they're not going to let their people work because they're not confident in their own skills and they don't want to be passed up. And so what they're going to do is they're going to micromanage, if you will. I hate that term, but they're going to micromanage, and they're not going to let their people do the jobs to their fullest potential. They're not going to let their own guys make mistakes because they're constantly hovering over them. Best way to learn is to make mistakes. And we all make mistakes on the fire ground. We still do. After 25 years, we're making mistakes, and you got to learn from that. So the modern senior man has to be dialed into all that. He has to know where that 22-year-old kid is getting the information from. He has to let the conversation flow. He has to engage those younger guys to be able to boost them up to the management staff. I always think that we always say no too often.
Oh yeah, love it.
With anyone, whether it's in the firehouse, the command staff, the line officers. As soon as somebody asks a question, the first answer automatically is no.
No. Can't do
Why
that.
aren't we saying yes?
Right.
Why aren't we saying yes to everything?
And it takes courage to say yes. It takes a look. Yes. Go ahead.
That's exactly my point, right? Is that confidence, that courage, right? You're not gonna allow somebody to try something if you're not confident in your own skills because you don't know what the backlash could be. There's a lot of unknown, and when there's unknown and you're not confident in your own skills, the answer is no every single time. We need to say yes. We need to say yes now more than ever.
Yes.
Because the yes builds and promotes that younger blood. That yes promotes excitement and unity and culture. Let them try it. They want to try a new hose load on the back of the engine? Yes, let's go. I mean, these are things in the fire service today that are just so awesome, is that now more than ever, people can see how other people do it. And so as much as we sit, years ago, social media was a downfall of the American Fire Service. And I would take anyone to task on that and say, you're completely out of your minds. One, we wouldn't be able to do this tonight. This tonight, hopefully, will fire somebody up. This tonight will hopefully excite people and get the conversation flowing. But on the other end of things too is, now guys can get excited and they bring it to the table and they bring their phone. Bring your phone to the table, but make it about the fire service. Have a conversation about what's on your phone. Say, hey, look at this Instagram post. Did you see the back end of this engine? Did you see they got that 300 line? How the hell do they this bumper line? How the hell do they pack that? Look at the positioning on this tower ladder at this third alarm in the Bronx, like they're under power lines, under the tree. All these things, right?
Yeah.
Let's get excited about that. Have conversation, promote the conversation about that. And what that does is that makes it better for all of us, because now the guys can go to the floor and they can stretch. They can pack it a different way because we allow them to do that. We told them yes. And then that senior man, that modern senior man, goes out there and puts his gloves on with them, and he's stretching with them, right? And so promote, say yes, and then go do and learn from the do. Sometimes the do doesn't work. Sometimes it's not going to work in your first do district, but it works somewhere else, and it's great for them. But at least you tried, and at least you empowered those people to make that try.
Then I'm trying to keep up with these great quotes here. I'm trying to write them down. Learn from the do. I love that. I wrote down 20 minutes, 22 seconds. You said lack of confidence leads to terrible. What was the quote?
Lack of confidence leads to terrible leadership.
Leadership. Okay.
I guess.
Yeah, no, yeah. I have it on record, but that might be the soundbite at the beginning of the scrap. But we'll see. If you are listening right now and you're not getting fired up, you might need to check your pulse. I am going to I'm going to catch you. There's a ton of people with amens, 100% good stuff. I'm not going to read all those. I'm going to skip on and go to Real Talk, Jeremy. Keep that passion alive, brother. That's from Jeremy Hurst down Louisiana way.
Good brother, man. Good brother. I reached out to him after your show. Never met the guy before. Heard him on your show. on the Weekly Scrap.
Right on.
And I sent him a DM and I said, hey, brother, I was impressed with your conversation. Let's hook up one day, man. I told him, let's have a pop one day. I'd love it.
Especially with his passion project that he's got going with that documentary.
Oh, my God. I'm in love with it.
Yeah, I can see that being a match made in heaven. But,
absolutely. Thank you, Jeremy. And you got a great name, too, brother. Appreciate it.
Solid Jeremy's doing solid Jeremy things.
That might be the next one. I like that.
Okay, so a lot of comments on what you're talking about. I'm giving here, and I've got another question coming at you, and they're not throwing softballs. So this one is from Garrett Toes. I have to get the pronunciation on that. I know you comment every week, and I got to get the pronunciation right. How do you help to fix a risk-averse culture? The 24-foot ladder throw you mentioned is a prime example. My officers keep telling me I can't do it solo because might hurt your back.
There's my answer. I mean, it's crickets, right? I mean, you might hurt your back. Like I could hurt my back when I'm sitting at the kitchen table and I drop something, I pick it up. That's outrageous. We got to set our people up for success. We got to allow guys to try in the real world, because here's the deal. You roll up on a first due engine, it's a 3-man engine, because let me tell you something. Most of the people across the United States aren't rolling in with a 5 or 6-man engine company.
Right.
So you're rolling in, and now you got people from the windows. Not only do you have your chauffeur getting that line stretch for the officers force an entry, and you got a guy at the window. Are you going to wait for that second dude to throw that 24? That's not the time to train, and that's not the time to figure that shit out. And that's crazy. And that's where I really struggle with things like this, is when we hold back our people from trying different things. We have to train in reality. And the one thing we don't do with National Fire Radio, and I'll tell you exactly why, is we don't really talk a lot tactics, firefighting, and strategy, because that's not my wheelhouse. I mean, listen, I've been a fireman for a long time. Love going to fires. I'll drop the mic right now and run out for. I would love to go to fire. I love going to fires, and I love challenging myself on the fire ground. But like your show, you have incredible guys with the pedigree behind them in these training companies, in these conferences, that have the ability to teach and train these methods of realistic training. And so I stay out of that realm. We talk tradition, culture, and so on, but culture in a firehouse, when they're holding you back from realistic training, that's absurd. Get out there, do it yourself, figure it out, go find people that know how to do it. Yeah. Now more than ever, you have the ability through social media to find the content you're looking for. And you know what? You know where a good start? Right here on the Weekly Scrap. If they're featured on the Weekly Scrap, those guys are vetted and they're doing good conferences and putting out good content. And so just don't run to YouTube and look at the first guy throwing a 24 solo, right?
No, it's solid.
Right? I mean,
no, 100%.
You gotta, years ago, what Fire Engineering, Firehouse, Fire Rescue, those magazines did the vetting for us.
Right.
And so those instructors that were published were the vetted ones. And so we could rely on the editor of those magazines to know that those people have the pedigree behind them to be offering that type of training. Right now, there's not really a vetting process anymore. Anybody could have a pop-up training company tomorrow. Like I said, National Fire Radio, I could have been talking firematics for the last 3 years. Not my wheelhouse. That's not what we're trying to do here, because there's a lot of other guys that would step on me and squash me in a second, because it's just not my wheel. It's not what we do. Right. And so you have to start looking at who's teaching and training. But if you're in a culture, your firehouse is not allowing you to train in real time. If you're not doing a single man, 250 load by yourself, because chances are that's going to happen. If you're not throwing ladders by yourself and bringing the equipment you need with you, that's going to happen. Like that stuff happens. So if you're not training for it, we're setting our people up to lose. And the thing is that we hold people to these expectations, but we fail as leaders to prepare them for them, because what's going to happen is that poor guy is going to get thrusted into a position that he's going to have to throw that ladder one night, and he doesn't do it well. And then his command staff's going to come down on him and say, what the hell was wrong with you?
Exactly.
And then he doesn't have, what's he going to say? You guys held me back from learning how to do that? They don't care at that point.
God forbid the 13 people standing on the curb with these.
Tell me about it. Yeah.
So that they can film it, put it on YouTube, and then get him lambasted by all the keyboard warriors.
It's a tough, navigating today's culture is tough. I don't envy any command staff. I don't envy any company officer because they're being torn in a lot of different ways. And so there has to be that appreciation for that too. Corley, you're a battalion chief. I can only imagine how you're being pulled in so many different directions between safety and SOGs, but street smart and reality and the company offs, all these things. So when you get pulled in all those different directions, it's very hard to navigate. And so what the collateral is, our guys suffering below us. And so we have to be careful how we choose to navigate the landscape, but we have to make sure that we're making sure that our people are trained according to how we operate daily.
1,000%. Number one way.
I hope that answers the question.
Yeah. Like I said, if you are not fired up, go check your pulse. There is ego eats brains. Dude, you're getting a lot of comments because it is, you are hitting some, knocking it out of the park.
Thanks, man.
My Crew First Culture said there are so many of us out there that want to make the fire service better. You just have to look outside of your own department to find them, but we have to rally together to truly make the fire service better.
And not only that, Jeremy brings up a good point, right? Typically, the guys that are making some of the biggest names in the fire service are hated by their own jobs. Talk about that, right? You have incredible industry leaders that are running these conferences and training hundreds and hundreds and thousands of firemen every year, right?
No, absolutely.
And then they go home to their own departments, and their guys are like, "Oh, this freaking guy."
Yeah, this guy. No,
unbelievable. Like this is we're our own enemy in this game, right? So be it, right? It is. So we gotta trudge through that. But man, I'm telling you, he's spot on though, man. He's spot on.
If you can't
find it,
yes, go find it. If you can't find your department, look elsewhere. Lots of great people out there willing to help. That came from Rob P. Thiebert. Senior man takes responsibility for mistakes and man's up to it. I'm reading through. I'm just catching you up. Dane Yaw said, totally stealing, you learn from the do. So there you go. We got a slogan that started in the spread.
Bumper sticker.
OKC training right there. Rob Davis, how about the two-man engine company? Those two got to do all the jobs with what they have. The job's still the same.
Nobody cares how many guys you got on it. Get the job done.
There we are. Follow good examples. Okay, I'm almost caught up with everybody. Oh, they're still just typing. Wow, okay, I'm not going to catch up. Ryan Soller said, absolutely changing the game. Everyone feels that we are not good enough. That's why we strive to be better and to train. All right, I'm catching. Unrealistic training. This is from Robert Ramirez. Unrealistic training creates false expectations that lead to poor decisions that will directly impact our performance and survivability on the fire ground.
Do you know what? I wish I was as articulate as that. That guy should be on the show, not me. He is going to be on
the show.
I'm telling you.
Terry Ayler said, too many departments are very happy to accept failure. They critique their calls, but don't acknowledge or learn from their mistakes.
Terry Ayler's solid brother, man. I love that dude. Great chief. Awesome.
And he is spot on with the whole, what is the term? Just kind of the circle jerk of what a critique is at a lot of places of, hey, good job, good job, good job. Good job, you.
I tell you, man, if it's all high fives and ass slaps on the way out of there, something's wrong.
You're not wrong. We'll just keep tackling it. Okay, pulling up my notes. I'll try to get back on track. You've got me going here. We're going on some rabbit holes.
That's what we're supposed to do, no?
Absolutely, dude. That's
all right,
that's what makes the scrap so much fun for me, and apparently for all these people commenting and chiming in. So
I'm just glad there's people in here. I didn't think anybody was going to show up, truthfully.
I'm using your words here, a social media platform that captures the traditions and culture of the American Fire Service. I mean, would you encapsulate that as the initial goal?
100%.
Okay.
100%.
Go ahead. Is there anything you want to say? I don't want to cut you off.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately what it's all about is connecting on the channels that matter. Times change. Technology's changed more now, and I'm not talking about fire service. I'm just talking about life.
Yes.
Like technology is changing so fast. And so the bigger the machine, the harder it is for them to keep up. And so what we've been able to do is really hack that attention. It's this right here. Mm-hmm. Everybody's on this, right? So if everybody's on that, we need to be on that because that's where the message is being received. If we can influence a 22-year-old kid through vetted content that's on a device that matters, we can write all the articles we want and we can tuck them away in a magazine. Right. But as magazine, as magazine sales dwindle,
Sure.
younger generations don't even look at magazines, let alone, subscribe to them, right? They might be in a Firehouse, they thumb through and look at the pretty fire pictures, but they're not diving into the content. And I'm not trying to upset anyone here, but that's just fact, right? So print is dying. And so because of that, there's really a network here where we have to navigate social media and the channels that matter. Podcasts are more important than ever now. People love audio. We're doing Clubhouse now, which I get Corley, I think you listened to a few minutes the other night, but my God, what we can do on that platform alone is going to be unreal. And we're just testing it now, and we're having great success with it. And I would challenge anybody listening tonight, if you don't have the Clubhouse app yet, hit me up with a DM or find somebody that's got invites. You got to have an Apple iOS platform. But, man, you got to get on Clubhouse because, my God, the stuff that's going on there is unbelievable. And so, the things constantly change. The influence of Facebook, the influence of Instagram, YouTube, podcasts, all those platforms. And so what you have to do is you have to get the players of this industry on those channels. We need to get them there, whether they're reluctant about it or not. The day of, I don't have time for social media is crap, because you have to, if you're into this job and you have something to share, it's got to be on a channel that matters, because you could scream in one direction and somebody's standing behind you. If they can't hear you, who cares what you're screaming? So we need to be, so for National Fire Radio, there's so much we want to do. Right. And there's so much on the different channels that we're trying to put out and we're trying to navigate. This week we're going down to Texas. We're going to be shooting at a conference down there. We get invited to conferences now where we document and live stream from different conferences. Friday night, we're hosting one of our on taps, which will be a roundtable discussion, which we do out at a bar. I do a lot of moderating these days. I do Zoom moderating where, different fools groups I've brought in different speakers, and I'll host and navigate the questions back and forth and, moderate events. But if we make an impact with one person every time we do something, it's a win, man. And that's what it's really all about for me. It's about sharing my love. It's about Rob and Sebi and Tucker and the rest of the guys on the crew. It's all of them. If we can share our passion and document it along the way, and it fires someone up, or it makes a change somewhere, or we make a change for the better, or a kid that I send a message back to when he's struggling, and I just tell him, listen, pal, head down, work hard, you'll get there, and so on. I mean, man, I sleep well at night. Plain and simple.
Awesome. No, dude, that's so strong. So strong. I love it. I'll just let you keep going.
Listen, I'm going to even expand on that a little bit. I think about the OGs that I grew up with, right? I was a student of fire engineering and Firehouse, like I said before. I read those magazines cover to cover. I know those names. I know those 40, 50 names, my OGs, the guys, the original gangsters of my generation that I looked up to, and their content and their articles and know-how, right? Man, how do I get them now to be on these channels that matter? How do I get their influence now? Because what happened is a lot of them are aging out.
Yes.
And so their message is starting to age out. And when you get 25-year-old kids that don't know, Ray McCormick and Salka and all these names, right, in the industry that I read their articles, and Vincent Dunn. Right. Absolutely. When you have a 25-year-old kid in your Firehouse who doesn't know who those gentlemen are, something's wrong.
Yeah, you touched a problem. Yeah.
And I say this all the time. I go, Vincent Dunn and I could be holding hands, skipping into a Firehouse, and everybody's going to know me and nobody's going to know him. There is something seriously wrong with the American Fire Service, right? So what we have to do for myself is I have to get to those platforms and then really talk about the people that I think matter. And Corley, what you do with the weekly scrap, you do very much this. I see on the screen, I'm episode 80. So 79 episodes before me, you've had 79 other individuals on here that are top shelf guys and girls who have a message to share and better the fire service. And you're doing it on a platform that matters. You have people diving in and watching live on Facebook, and you're educating, and they may never heard of, some of the guests you've had before, but after that night, you've engaged them. You've piqued their curiosity. You've put those guys on that channel that matters and where the attention is. So what you're doing is exactly what I'm talking about and how important it is now more than ever.
No, and I think that's one reason why me and you have become best friends almost instantly. No, seriously, it's like we've had so much, well, from our National Fire Radio talk that we had.
Yeah.
How much we had in common with our motivations and passions and personality types.
And you know what's awesome? Let's talk about this. How awesome is it that we've had the ability to do this? Let's talk about how awesome it is that all these podcasts are popping up, whether you like them or not. Some are good, some are great, some are awful, right?
100%.
But you have the ability to have a platform now where you can have your voice heard. And if people want to find you and they know your content's good because they're getting that through conversation and people are sharing it, right? Then you're making an impact. I would have never been able to do this 25 years ago. We wouldn't have been able to have right?
No, you'd be, 100%. I mean, you'd be struggling just to make the standard, make a ripple in your own department, let alone being able to get the message out.
So the message to that then is very much this. This is how good this is. That 18, 25, 35-year-old guy that's struggling in his own department, now more than ever, he can find like-minded people by the couple search words and a couple of clicks of the keys. And never before have they been able to do that. And so what the internet has done and social media has done for the fire service is you can find like-minded people, like-minded groups, culture.
Yes.
I mean, the Firehouse Vigilance, the culture there. Nobody follows your page unless they're not dialed in. So if you become part of that community, you can very much find people that follow in the same beliefs and values that you have. Never before have people been able to do that. Oh, yeah. Now more than ever, you have the ability to do so. It's incredible. And then not only that, but educating them that they have experience. They can go all these conferences. I mean, God, I'm so excited.
The micro conference. Yeah. So whatever term you want to put on it, but yes.
Let me tell you something. The big conferences are going to be dead. The micro conferences, there'll be 8 to 10 conferences across the country over the next few years that are going to be the headliners. And it's going to be the smaller conferences that are going to be where it's at, because you're going to get the same quality from the big show at the smaller show at a lesser price. And it's more intimate. You're going to get more FaceTime and value at these smaller conferences. So all these guys that are running these regional conferences, keep pushing, because I think they're making such an incredible impact. I've never been more excited about the training culture in the fire service. I'm going to be honest with you. People might think it's struggling, but I disagree wholeheartedly. I think if now more than ever, you could seek it out, find what you're looking for, and go do.
Yeah, but you're looking at the forest, not the tree, because most people are looking at their tree, at their department, and going, our training sucks, instead of looking at the forest and the sheer amount of that's available. And that's where that national comes in that National Fire Radio, because you get a bigger 20,000 views sometimes.
Corley, it does, but think about it. If you're a kid in, pick any state and draw a circle 300 miles around wherever you live, you'll hit a conference.
You'll hit a conference. That not only that, but a quality conference. That's
what I'm saying.
Yes, the crazy part about it, man. It's just and go ahead.
And part of that conference, it's not just the hands-on. I mean, they'll share those tips, tricks, and hacks and show you how to do it. And that gentleman asked before about the single man ladder raise or that single man engine stretch on a 2-man engine, right? They'll show you how to do that. You could learn those things there. But what you really get out of it is this.
Yeah.
Like I am so selfish when it comes to National Fire Radio, because this is, I've made it I want to say career. It's not yet, but I've made a career of like networking and buffing now. It's amazing, right? So for me, it's a selfish endeavor. Think about the guys you get to speak with.
Oh, right? Dude, I am the luckiest guy in the American Fire Service. I say that all the time.
I'm the second one then, because the people I get to talk to and the formulation of National Fire, formalizing National Fire Radio has opened the door for me to have these conversations. And so for me, that's the selfishness on the back end of NFR. Is very much that at the end of the day, man, I get to talk to and work with incredible people, and never before would I have had that opportunity. But the one thing that I have learned is everybody in this industry is approachable.
Yes.
Everyone.
Well, all the ones that are worth, because one of the reasons they are is because they're so genuine and authentic. It's just, it's crazy how they all have that in common. It's amazing.
I agree with you, but it definitely goes to the conversation that is why they're out there pushing. That's why they spend so much of their own time and money on building these conferences and training companies and everything else. It's not about them. It's not about them. It's building culture. It's teaching and training, but then it's also having a couple pops and the camaraderie and brotherhood. And that part of it, I think, is just as equally important, because when you get to a position, we talked about it before, when you can get into a group and surround yourself with like-minded people, you start to understand that you're not the oddball.
Yes.
You're like, holy shit, there's other people that feel the same way about the way I felt this way for 10 years, and I didn't know how to share this. And all of a sudden I come to this event and everybody else is in the same boat. I mean, it doesn't get any better than that.
No, you're right. And you know, you had the fools, you know, since about the turn of the millennium, you've had the fools growing. But even the internet has given them a voice to grow and
Hell yeah.
get out there. You know what I'm saying? Whereas before it's like, what's the fools, you know?
For sure, man.
And so and then like you said, you touched on conferences. Okay, I got some other stuff coming at you. And any of these you don't want to touch on, you can use the pass button.
No worries.
Rob Davis coming at you says, Jeremy, thoughts on small town volunteer departments that are in immediate need of change but unwilling because of this is how we've always done it, especially while we're changing to a combination department. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the common theme, right? I mean, you're not alone. That struggle is everywhere. We've always done it this way. In some of these small town volunteer departments, they'll have a 26-year chief, you know? And when you have something like that, typically, and I'm not going to say in all cases, but typically that person's more in it for themselves than they are for the good of the department. The department needs to recognize that. And unfortunately, in small towns, politics plays a big part,
Sure.
especially in a volunteer service. And so it's tough and it's a struggle. But I can guarantee you can find one or two people that believe in your mission. You can find people in the adjoining town that believe in your mission and never sacrifice your own values for them. And, you know, push, work hard, train, do it the best you can, and deliver the end product to the customer the way it's supposed to be delivered. And unfortunately, you know, Rome wasn't built overnight. Change doesn't happen overnight. It's truly a struggle that the American volunteer fire service faces. You know, we push good people out every single day in the volunteer fire service. And it's a shame. But I could talk hours on this topic.
On just that topic.
You know, shoot me a DM. I can entertain that conversation down the road for sure.
And Jeremy touched on it also, that he put the number 300-mile radius, and you could make the circle however you want. Find those conferences, get on the internet, make those connections, join those groups, watch the National Fire Radio podcast, videos, everything. Feed that passion. This is how we've always done it, is killing departments. That's from Terry Ehlers. All right, there we go. Plant the seed of passion and let it grow comes from Gavin Reynolds. Okay. Ryan King said, I used to always dwell on going to FDIC, but not so much anymore. I feel I can get as top quality information and training on social media. And that's exactly what Jeremy's saying.
And there's a lot to that too. You know, I value a lot of the training content that's out there. And I think you can learn from social media training. I think you can learn I've gotten in this conversation many times with different people about learning experience.
Right.
And I think, you know, for myself, before social media, I was that kid that loved to sit on that bumper and listen to the old guys talk. And I think there's a lot of value in that. And we need to make sure that those stories are being told. And that has a lot to do with the podcast because, you know, for myself, it's if we can share a couple stories, that's something that a nugget might be put in somebody's bank in the back of their head. And one day they might pull that out on the fire ground and they learned an experience because of a conversation. So I think you could learn experience through conversation and topics. And, you know, something like this tonight, we might say something that sticks with somebody and they might be able to use it down the road. So they didn't have to learn it for themselves, which is huge. So I agree with Brian. Brian King's 100% right, man. 100% right.
Right on. All right. Get my notes back up here. Back on track somewhat. The dying breed, we touched on that. What do you say? Okay, we've got that one. Apparatus innovations, because I wanted to touch on this because it's one of my favorite things, man. I think the very first one, I don't know when it even was, but was the Lazy Susan for the extrication equipment when you showcased that. I'd never seen that before. I loved that. I want one so bad. Anyway, do you have you capture so much stuff that so many people would never see. But nifty modified compartments to added extras. Some of your favorites. I want to hear some of your favorites that you've seen.
Man, you know, let me preface it by this. What's I have to entertain everything that comes my way. So sometimes people are like, "Oh, you got to check this out." I look at it, and I'm like, "Right." You know, like
that's even better.
Yeah, you know, I mean, it's tough because you're like, they're so proud, and I'm like, yeah. But the apparatus innovations is just like I say in some of the videos, especially the early on ones, right? Where these corny one-liners like it's a home run and you know the Solid Brothers. So like all that stuff. But there's a couple that stick out for sure. You know, and some of them are cosmetic too. But I believe the cosmetics are important as well because it leads to that company pride,
yes,
culture, and so on. So the most recent one that kind of went viral was the LED lit up Q2B,
yes,
the federal siren.
Yeah.
You know, we first learned about that Stamford, Connecticut, the shops there. Jason and Frank, those guys are unbelievable up there. They have an incredible shop. And just some company pride. They were putting the company colors in the LED colors just to recognize the company and their pride. And it was awesome. We actually went back, shot a video just on how to do it, you know, because we had so many people asking. And, man, that thing exploded. I get them from every –
you've been getting tons of pictures. Yes.
Cool. So that's one. I mean, but that's a non-functional. The Lazy Susan's very cool. There's a company, Fire Marine Inc. out in Ohio that do incredible work. We're trying to get out there to shoot on the floor there, and they just have really talented people that do some innovative stuff. The Lazy Susan's very cool. The other one that was really interesting was we were at a Pierce shooting content from the floor at Pierce. They gave us 3 days to roam the factory and shoot content. And it was it's been fun. The industry partners that we've built along the way too, it should be said, have just been incredible. And we do projects for them. And this is the back end of NFR that nobody even sees or knows about, but we do marketing creative. We work with marketing teams. We build marketing and brand plays for different. So not only is this the social media and the podcast, but the business aspect of it too, outside of all the merchandise and all that type of stuff, is the business end of working with different brands.
Right.
And nobody sees any of that stuff. We have a huge project coming up in April, big product launch for Snap Tight Hose, which is just going to be, we're going to kind of flip things upside down with that, which is super exciting. But back to the apparatus innovation. So we're walking the floor and we passed this engine, and I think it's from Mississippi or somewhere, Louisiana, somewhere down there. And they had a brow light, but they had it on the front corners of the engine below the windshield, turned vertical, not horizontal. And it's right at eye level. So like if that was a scene light, I mean, you would blind everybody at the scene. And so we were trying to figure it out, and we couldn't figure out why they would want that there. And so it was just super unique. Never saw it before. We're out at the bar that night. We're doing a couple pops. And Rob grabs me and goes, "Those are the kids from that department." He goes, "That's the shirt there. There was the shirt."
Oh, good. So they were up there specking it or whatever?
Yeah, they were there like doing the final inspection on it, right? So Rob grabs them, brings them over. We start talking to them, and we're like, "Hey, what's the scoop with this light?" And they said, "Oh, that light's it's to spot mailboxes. It's a real rural area, and they have like a quick toggle, and so the officer or the driver can toggle on that light on and off real quick to shoot mailbox numbers because they're like houses with long driveways and so on. And it's super unique to their rural area, like dirt roads, copper mailboxes they were talking about. So it's kind of hard to spot the address and things like that. So it's just one of those unique things that had to do with that region. We captured that. We put that out there. That thing exploded, went viral. And now it's cool. We get to see fire trucks being built with these apparatus innovations coming out of the door.
With the mailbox lights going vertical.
Yeah. Yeah. The mailbox lights, the you name it, man.
Yes, man. I can only imagine. Rob said Gluckstag, Mississippi.
There it is. Yeah. See, Rob's like Rain Man. He remembers all that stuff. I don't. I just, but he's good, man.
He said you're the responsible one early. I didn't read that one, but he said
I am 100% out of our group. I'm the most responsible. That's a given.
Awesome. All right. In that same vein, what are some of the coolest favorite traditions that you have unearthed?
Oh, man.
This is my payback question.
That's hard. I think you stumped me on this. Like nice. I'm trying. You told me not to sit back in my chair. I'm sitting back now. God, some of the.
I even got Rob laughing. That's good.
Yeah, probably because he's the only one watching this. I don't. Oh, Corley, that's really good. Traditions.
I can let you off the hook and move on.
Yeah, let me think about that.
Okay.
We'll come back to that.
It was great. I don't know. Rob may be able to answer it. Was it 2019? He went out to Washington or Portland, Oregon. Did the
Right.
Fire X talk with Snodgrass. That's the first time I ever met Rob, and
Yep.
it was very much in passing. Like we didn't really. We went and had pops that night, to use your term, and he told so many stories, and I was like, "Who is this guy?" Because I hadn't heard of NFR at that point, and so that was kind of my first introduction.
Right.
But he had so many stories that it was really cool, and that's what
We are so blessed to have been able to do what we've done in the last 3 years.
Yeah.
And the experiences we've had. And I am forever grateful for however this thing plays out, wherever this thing goes. I'm just forever grateful for the experiences, because the experiences have made me better. I find that, connecting with people, shaking hands, looking at people in the eyes. I mean, these are important things that are getting lost. When you walk into a firehouse and you're engaged and people are willing to talk with you, something that stands out to me, we were out in South Dakota, at Rosenbauer shooting content from their factory. And that night we got stuck in South Dakota. I forget the name of the city. We got stuck in South Dakota for 2 days. The plane we were supposed to be on canceled, and they didn't have another flight for 2 days. I mean, we're literally in the middle of nowhere. And so we got stuck in this town for 2 days. So, of course, what are you going to do? Start knocking on firehouse doors.
Right on.
And we stop at this firehouse, and we ended up having this incredible conversation in their weight room, of all places. And we're all standing around. And I really like to educate people about what we do and how important it is to protect culture and tradition and so on. And so we just have this incredible conversation. And I always find a lot of the senior guys, a lot of the older guys, they back away from the conversation. You walk in and they disappear.
Sure.
And you start talking with the younger guys in the firehouse, and the conversation starts really going. You get some laughs. We're having a good time. But there's a good message being shared. And I'm all about sharing a good message. And then next thing you know, you start finding these senior guys like to creep out, and they like to creep into the circle, and they're circling, and they're starting to listen some more. And then all of a sudden they pop in with a one-liner. And then next thing you know, we've been able to facilitate that 25, 30-year guy starts telling stories.
Right.
And their own people sit back, and they're like, I didn't know that.
You get to pop the court.
It is, Corley, those are some of my favorite things. And so often we don't record them, and I wish we do. And I think, like, going forward, we need to do that, because the storytelling and the content that comes out of that, I could only imagine when we walked out the door, those young kids looked at that senior guy in a whole new light.
Right.
They got more out of him that night than they probably got out of him in the last 3 years. And to me, that is so important. If we can facilitate that conversation and mix it up a little bit for them, we've done our job. That is certainly one place that stands out for sure. I forget the name of the city. Shame on me. The other thing too, just to circle back, you talked about tradition and culture and so on. One of the biggest things, I can't tell you what the most interesting culture or tradition off the top of my head, but what I can tell you is we get a lot of people tell us they have no tradition.
Right.
They have no culture. Down in the South, Southwest, and so on, areas are growing. I know guys in Texas that have new firehouses being built every 6 months. They're opening a new firehouse. And you walk into those firehouses and they're sterile. They're like hospitals. They're blank walls, tile floors. There's no culture. It's a brand new firehouse. They park a new truck in there and they're like, go to work. And there's no history. Where I am in the Northeast, everything is steeped in history. I mean, you're talking hundreds of years of history here. And so those firehouse walls are covered in history. And so for a new kid to walk into a firehouse like that, they get a good sense of the department and the company and the people. When you start in a firehouse that's sterile and they don't have that culture on the walls and the stories from years and years ago that are building it, what do they have? Mm-hmm. Right. Oh. So what's exciting for me, Jared Vanek, good buddy of mine from up here. He's now down in Spartanburg in the Carolinas, South Carolina. They started putting company logos and company pride and pictures on the walls and stuff to start building that pride in that culture in their firehouse. And I think that's so important.
Yes.
having that message and knowing where you came from and your foundation. And even if your foundation is new, let those people know that, listen, this firehouse is 6 months old, but we are responsible for right this moment forward, starting to build the culture of this station, of this company.
You can't have a tradition unless someone starts it.
Right.
Plain and simple.
100%.
That's awesome, man. Dude, I love that. And like you said, with the Boombergs and the stations going, and the propensity nowadays with the leaning towards building, like you said, the sterile fire stations, they're being built more like offices than they are homes. And hopefully we'll swing back from that. Because there is Lee Hopkins chiming in, said, first of all, what the hell is a pop? Second, one of the coolest cultural things I've seen is a chief who walks into the Charleston, South Carolina firehouse. They all stand and say hello to the chief, even if he is retired. That is a pretty cool one.
I'll tell you this, man. You're starting to get some stories going. Bridgeport, Connecticut, Chief Thode. Rich Thode has become a good friend. Spent the day with him. He took us around to every single firehouse in the city. Every single firehouse we went to, every firefighter stood up, shook his hand when he walked in the firehouse. This is chief of department. On the back end of it, Chief Thode knew every single firefighter by name, who they were. Right now, this isn't a small department. A couple hundred guys, right? Knew everybody by name, where they were on the promotions list, who their families were. This is a gentleman that's dialed into his department. Not only is he a hard-hitting fireman, right? I mean, this guy, hard-hitting fireman, but he's dialed into his department, and he knows every single guy on the line, guy and girl on the line, and he knows everything about them. And I'll tell you, it was so impressive to spend the day with him and to capture that and to see the mutual respect. Right. He's the type of chief that works for his people. His people don't work for him. He works for his people. And that's how you lead. If you want a leader, you work for your people. The higher you get in that chain of command, the harder you work. Not the less you work. The harder you work for the people. That backstep fireman has to know that 30-year chief is working his ass off for him so that he has a good career.
And
simple.
If you hear nothing else from the scrap, which has been unbelievably good so far, if you hear nothing else than that point, then it's been worth the time you spent here. Yes. Excellent. Servant leadership. Gavin Reynolds chimes in. All right. I'm getting there. I wanted to talk. Well, let me see if I had anything else in my notes I wanted to touch on. Huge fan of Clubhouse. We got to talk about Clubhouse. I definitely want to make sure you got to talk about your stuff on Clubhouse. When's your next Clubhouse coming up?
March 31st, but we'll probably sneak another one in before that if we can. We have so much on the schedule. It's just, it's so tough, but Clubhouse, real quick, let me just summarize it this way. There is no other social media platform where people can engage one another by speaking, meaning I could have on anyone on that platform and anybody could dial in and they listen. The audio is so clear, right? Corley, I mean, you can attest to that,
yes.
Right? And what you have is a room and you have moderators and the moderators have a conversation. And then there's people in the room that can listen. And at any time during that conversation, they can raise their hand. We bring them up to the stage, if you will, and we unmute them and they can ask questions. So we could bring the biggest names of the fire service in, and never before would you have been able to engage them with a question or a conversation. And now we could do this on this app. So that's where we're headed, man. We're going to bring in some heavy hitters. I'm going to start exposing people that need to start getting their messages out there. We're going to start exposing them onto this platform, and we're going to change the game going forward with Clubhouse. I think it's really an interesting app for sure.
It's going to make the scrap obsolete. I will no longer be reading comments.
Are you kidding me? This show is fantastic. This is the only other podcast I really listen to. I love this.
Well, thank you. Hey, that's high praise, man. I really do appreciate it. We've got Howard Reinwald said gold. I'm assuming he's talking about serving your people because he is one of the best at doing so.
Well, there's a guy that I want to meet. I've never met him, so I'm in on that.
He's awesome, man. So
of course, I know.
That's why you want to meet him.
That's right.
What else do you have in store for the future of National Fire Radio? I want to hear that before I start. I want to talk to you about books because you teased me in our conversation about books. So,
I hope I didn't set that thing up to be like, what's next for National Fire Radio? We have a lot going on. What's starting to take up a lot of time is the projects we're working with different manufacturers, different training companies, different training groups, different conferences, and so on. And so that really is starting to take up a lot of time. Those are big projects that we're working on. We have a big project coming up in April with FDIC being pushed out, Snap Tight. It's going to be announced this week. But we're working on a very big project with SnapTight, which will be very interesting. And I'm excited to get that out. It's going to be
Sweet.
a product launch and a roundtable and a bunch of other things that really is going to kind of change the game a little bit for them. And so on. But we do a lot of those type of projects. The other thing too is we got a lot of new types of content coming out. Corley hit on it before. We are a platform. So we don't just stay in one lane. We talk about tradition and culture, but we do everything around that as well. We do a tremendous amount of apparatus work. We're partnering with a few big apparatus manufacturers. We have some things in the works with them for newer types of content that will be coming out. That's going to be, in my eyes, I think, game changing to the industry. So we got some cool things coming out there. We have some more incredible podcasts coming out. Guests. I mean, the podcasts out of everything we do are my favorite, just because I get to sit back and talk with some of the best people in the world. And I'll tell you this too: don't lose track of the no names. And for me, I enjoy interviews. Some of the best interviews I had were local chiefs. I mean,
Yes.
a local volunteer chief, Joe Speranza. Rob speaks about it a lot. I've talked about it. His interview was incredibly impactful. And we've interviewed some heavy hitters, and I still, when you think about some of the conversations you have and the guests you have on, it's not just all about the guys that are out there that are hustling every day, and they're incredible.
Right.
But there's so many other people locally. So what I'm trying to do is encourage people locally, seek out those guys and have a conversation with them. If you know a chief in another department, or a captain in a house across town, or just a 35-year backstep fireman who never wanted to be a boss, go talk to him.
Yeah.
Buy the guy a beer. And by the way, whoever asked what a pop was, that's what it is, man. A cold one, a beer, right? Go buy them a pop and tell a story and listen to their stories. I mean, that experience is invaluable. Sit there for hours. And so, that's what this is about. We need to capture those stories. You want to find like-minded people, pick their brains. What we're doing here on a weekly scrap is exactly that. And I hope that when we're done tonight, people walk away from this with one or two little nuggets. And that means I did my job tonight and left an impact. And that's what we all need to do. We need to dial in and say we all have an obligation to make an impact on the American Fire Service, whether big or small. I'm nobody. I have a nobody platform. We're not out, and so. But I have something to share, and it's my passion. It's my love for it. And I think that I can hit a couple people with that. And so I hope whoever I hit tonight with that, those people then tomorrow when they go to the Firehouse, they share that love. And they pass it forward and give a nugget that they learned tonight, or start a conversation and carry on the conversation from tonight. That's what it's all about.
I love it, man. I love it. And I can tell you right now, there's been some nuggets dropped tonight. So it's been good.
Awesome.
And they've been passionate. That's the best part about it. Okay, so reading. I always like to ask my guests if there is a book or books that you think firefighters should read.
Yeah. Yes, all of them. And I'm not a reader.
What? Hold on.
So I'm not a reader. I'll be honest with you. Let me rephrase. I don't read books. I could go on for hours and hours about my day and where my time is spent. I wish I had the ability and the patience to sit down and read a book cover to cover. I am so jealous of guys like yourself and all your guests who you have on, and they're like, oh, this book and then this book. And you're like, oh, I know that guy. He wrote this. And you guys go on for hours. You nerd out about
We nerd
books.
out on it. There's no doubt.
And I get so jealous of that. My wife loves to read. I mean, my wife is a reader, and I'm so jealous of that. But here's what I do read. I read social media every single day. I read every single comment, question, and DM that comes through, and I answer every single one. I'm digesting what's happening today.
Right.
I read the pulse of the American Fire Service every single day through content, through blogs, through posts, through conference journals, and all these things. I read all of that. And that really occupies my time. And so I don't have the time. I'll be honest. I wish I could read leadership books. I've done books on audio in my car, when it used to be CDs. I used to put
Right
CDs
on.
in, right? But now in the car, what I listen to is I listen to podcasts, but I tend to stay away from a lot of the fire service podcasts only because I don't want to cloud my vision. And you and I talked about this,
Yeah.
Corley. I stumbled across the Scrap, this show, and I fell in love with it because it's not. You have a very dynamic format that I really like. You know, you end it with the questions. You really dive in, and you like to go down these rabbit holes. So it's not a broad overview, you know, and so on. And so I enjoy this format. And so I listen to yours regularly now. I do. I digested, I don't know, 8 episodes in 2 days. The one time I was driving for 2 days on a conference.
Huge compliment. Thank you. But go ahead.
I love it. I mean, I love it. But there's so many great podcasts out there. It's just I listen to more business ones. Gary V is a big influence on me. Gary V actually was the other catalyst that got me to have that conversation with my wife 3 years ago to start National Fire Radio. So, and before that, I had a family business that I was involved with and ran for many, many years. And so I, you know, that's a whole nother life outside of all of this that I still have, and so on. So I'm super busy. So I just don't have the ability to read, and I wish I could. I do want to start doing more audio though on, you know, in the car, and stream them and so on. So I'm going to be beginning to do that. I do, you know, I meant to put all my books. I have tons of fire books, and I've thumbed through a lot of them. I haven't read them cover to cover, but I thumbed through them. But this was the newest edition. This is the
right on.
Obviously, right, the Book of Andy. And so this has been I you know, the Book of Andy. I mean, I triple hole punched it, and I try to read a page or two every couple of days, and that's exciting for me. I never had the fortune to meet him prior to his early departure from us. But I wish, you know, that's somebody that his message needs to be shared. And I challenge everyone listening tonight, how many 25-year-old kids know who Andy Fredericks was?
Right. No, that
and his contribution.
You nailed it. Yes.
So we have the responsibility to pass that forward. So what I'm going to do with this, because it's printed, right? A friend of mine sent it to me. I didn't have a copy of it, sent me the PDF. I printed it out, right? And so what I'm going to do is when I'm done with this, I'm going to make a copy and I'm going to hand it to the next guy. And I want to share this with people. I'm getting to know Andy Fredericks by reading this, and I'm getting to know him through reading articles and comments and conversations and interactions people have had with him. That's the type of reading I like to do.
No, absolutely.
So on the book end, I wish I had a book to tell you that I was my favorite book. I mean, maybe, you know, One Fish, Two Fish, Red Fish, Blue Fish. I mean, that was a good one.
Careful.
I remember
Dr. Seuss.
Listen, I remember when I was like in 5th grade, like Mike Mulligan and the Steam Shovel. That was probably one of my favorite books as a kid growing up. But anyway, I mean,
hey, but here's
not trying to make light of this.
No.
But
I was going to say this. I was going to say, well, do you have a favorite blog or something you could point? But my point is, I like, you don't need to, because what you do is you digest all of that, and then you turn around and put it out there on your formats that you're doing. So if you want to get Jeremy's influence, get to National Fire Radio and start absorbing.
Yeah, and I consider myself very fortunate that I have the ability to do this, and I value this more than you know. And being on here tonight is just a highlight for me, and I value all of this very, very much. It's just it's very humbling. So
well, it is. It's been passionate. So the two things I love is passion and rabbit holes. You know. So
I'm good at both.
We've got both of those in spades tonight. So on the Scrap, we have a thing we do each and every week, which is the 5 questions for firefighters.
Ugh.
They are completely your opinion. The answers are completely your opinion. There's no right or wrong, but the points are arbitrary and passed out by me. And I get to have the payback now.
I know, right? We just did this last week, so we that was fun, man. It was fun to hear you do your own questions.
Right on, dude. I now understand why people enjoy them, because I got to be on the other side. So
I love it.
All right. Jeremy Donch, are you ready for the 5 questions for firefighters?
Absolutely.
Here we go. Number 1. What is the number 1 issue facing the modern fire service?
Communication. I think under communication, we have to do a better job of it. I think we have to communicate from the top down better and from the bottom up better. So I think communication is getting lost. Because underneath the umbrella of communication is everything. And so, you know, I could dive into it right now, but that's not what we're doing in the Scrap. But communication, because if we don't know how to communicate with one another, that means, you know, job, accountability, responsibility, and everything else suffers because we haven't been able to communicate what the expectations were. And so people don't know what the expectations are. So how can they respond to that? And then we hold them accountable where communication is just a breakdown. So communication.
Nice. Beautiful answer and beautifully articulated. That gets max points.
Max points. Thank you.
I mean, how can you argue with that, though? Because you didn't just say communication like in a generic way. You also explained it, and broke it down with, anyway, I could keep on going, but you got it. What is the thing you are most excited about for the future of firefighting?
Technology. And that was your answer, wasn't it? When I asked you. And it was funny when you said that because I'm like, yes, it is. And I've been struggling with that because I wanted to find something else to say.
Sure, but it's tough.
But I agree with you. And I hit on it earlier tonight in this conversation was how important technology is today more than ever in the fire service. I know in my last 25 years how fast it has changed. I can only imagine in the next 25 years where we're going to be with technology. But we have the obligation to use technology with yesterday's know-how. And so that's the challenge, nice. Right? We can throw and better everything in front of us with technology, but we can't lose sight of the values, tradition, and culture of the American Fire Service. We cannot lose sight of everything that's come before the newest invention or the latest and greatest technology.
Dude, that quote, the obligation to take advantage of the technology with yesterday's know-how. Dude, that is a beautiful. You said you wish you could articulate. That is a great quote.
Or we should hang it up now then. That's
yes.
good.
No, absolutely. We're done. We hit our pinnacle.
We're done. Thank you everybody for tuning in. Have a great night.
That, man. That gets max points. I'm trying not to give you max points every time. I want to give you like a 0.75 or something.
I know. I did that to you the other night. I apologize.
But they've both been solid answers.
Thank you, sir.
I have to keep it where it's at. Best rank or position to be in the fire service.
I just like being a fireman. I've worn other hats in the volunteer house, chief of department, company officer. I love being a 25-year backstep fireman right now. It is just the best place for me to be because I'm influential to the younger kid. I can make those decisions based on experience and knowledge, and I can share that with those people, with the younger crew. And it also allows me to have the nozzle when I want it or the roof when I want it. And so it puts me in a very good spot to do whatever I want. So selfishly, backstep fireman.
Fair enough. And one thing that made me, I wanted to say this earlier, but imagine being the firefighter riding in the jump seat on the other side and having Jeremy Donch be your senior man. You know,
my guys love it because they know when I'm on the rig, we go to work.
Right on.
I talk our way into every single building we arrive at. Hands down, we go to work.
That's awesome.
I don't go to fires to stand there and watch them burn. So I always get my company in there. Every 9.9 out of 10 times we go to work.
Solid answer. It is unfortunately not the max points. That is your 0.75 because there's only one.
You're the company officer guy.
There's only one correct answer.
I got it.
Points are arbitrary. Oh, okay.
But no, not rightfully so. Your show. You get to do what you want.
It is our responsibility. I've given too many. I have to be consistent. That's
I understand.
Sorry, I was going to read. David Pruitt said, it's our responsibility to ensure that the guys and gals that are coming into the job know who these humble legends are and were. Every chance that can be created to have them hear straight from them, either in person or through their words, has to be taken. We have to be the keepers of their legacy.
Hell yeah, man.
I think
he's fantastic.
Said it just like, yeah.
It's good.
Forgot which question I'm on. Number 4, best advice you ever received.
You can't hold someone to the same standards you have for yourself because you'll be disappointed. That to me took me a long time to learn and understand. If you have high standards for yourself, often you'll be disappointed with others. And it's just because when you hold yourself to a high standard, not everybody holds themselves to the same standard you have for yourself. And so inevitably they're going to let you down. And so what you have to do is go into it with an open mind to understand that others might think differently or their work ethic might be a little bit different than yours. But what we do need to get out of them is maximum effort out of them.
Okay.
But their maximum effort might be different than mine. And when you hold everybody to the one you have for yourself, often they come short.
No, and then you can actually destroy motivation in some way, shapes, or form. I love that. I'll give you max points on that advice.
Thank you.
Especially because I wanted to say, but what about if they're not even meeting the minimum? But you covered it. You know what I'm saying? You have to get maximum effort.
100%.
That is their
right.
maximum effort.
Yeah. I think, this minimum standard shit is just, it drives me bananas. There should be no minimum standard. Everybody in this job should be trying to be maximum proficiency, maximum standard. Get rid of the term minimum, because when we do that, we allow people to get there. And that's crap. And that's what hurts us, kills us. That's what drives the fire service into the ground, is when we allow for minimum standards. You better not be minimum and sit on my engine.
Sorry, I'm trying to write down the time on the quote. 1 minute 18. Dude, yeah, you got preach, definitely solid work. Yes, wow, that's true. Never thought of it that way. I've never thought of it that way. The minimum standard crap. Nice.
That's what it is.
No, I'm feeling you. 100%.
I mean, come on, man. Oh, minimum. He meets the minimum. I'm like, well, tell him to go home. Tell him to meet the maximum.
Nice. All right, last question, and it is heavy fire and searchable space. Would you rather be assigned to the nozzle or first in on VES?
It's definitely life safety, right? I mean, that's what we're supposed to be doing, is putting ourselves in the line of fire, if you will, to get and save whoever our customer is, right? And so for me, I mean, it's that conversation. I ride an engine, so typically it's the nozzle, but we do a lot of cross training too. We do a lot of cross work. So, truck work is not out of the question for sure. But at the end of the day, I love being on the nozzle of the fire, but I love doing truck work as well. But for me, I think the mission of the American Fire Service is to protect life and property first. And I know people can argue putting water on a fire makes the problem,
Right.
problem begins to go away and all that. But at the end of the day, I'd like to be there to put myself in a position thinking that I have the experience and knowledge to do so, to affect the change.
And there it is. That's beautifully said. The 5 questions for firefighters, according to Jeremy Donch, National Fire Radio. Beautifully done, sir. All right. Now, I think we've covered this a little bit, but I like to say, where can people get in touch with you, get you to come to their department, reach out to you, ask for advice, whatever? Go.
Yeah, I mean, we're an open book. One of the most important things about National Fire Radio is being 100% authentic. We're very easily approachable. We are found where we are everywhere. So we're on all social media channels, of course. And then, of course, our email is nationalfireradio@gmail.com. It's very simple.
Easy, yes.
But you can find us anywhere. We're an open book, and I love conversation. I love talking to people, so don't be afraid to reach out. I talk to people all the time, and so on. But, it's just important, to sum this up real quick, Corley, being here tonight is super important to me because, we talked about it before, affecting change. And,
Yes.
If hopefully tonight, through this conversation between you and I, we made an impact tonight and we make a change. And for me, that's what's most important about all of this. And so I really appreciate you having me on the show tonight. This is truly an honor to share the stage with all the other guests that you've had before me and the ones that are come after. I mean, I can't even believe I'm sitting here. So this has just been an awesome experience.
I can say this. Oh, go ahead. So I didn't mean to cut you off.
No. Go ahead,
I was gonna
man.
say,
'Cause I could talk for hours.
It's like a 3.5 hour conversation we've had now between, you, me, and Rob, and talking.
Sure.
So, and it feels like we just started scratching the surface. It's so much fun and so natural.
Yeah.
And from the responses we're getting here, completely awesome. Another amazing scrap, great scrap brothers, awesome scrap
Nice.
gentlemen thing. So, you killed it. You crushed it tonight as a guest, and I appreciate you coming on and spending your evening with me.
Of course.
I gotta give a shout out to Orlando and the Fighting 17 because I'm wearing their shirt here. It was sent to me by Chief Walt Lewis. And
Nice.
so I like to give the shout out. And then I got his coin, his personal coin that I like to show off because I almost didn't want to show this one because it was kind of personal. He's my friend now. He says so.
Very cool.
It says so on his coin that you can't even read the inscription. It is tiny. I need my glasses. But the flip side, and he had to explain this to me, these are the 4 ways that you would probably know him. I don't know if my camera will even zoom in, but it's the Orlando
There you
Fire
go.
Department, Central Florida, Search and Rescue, the Pipes and Drums, and of course the the Fools. And so, anyway, I love getting the coin. So thank you, Chief Walt Lewis, for sending that, and of course the Fighting 17, the shirt. The care package was awesome. I had to give the shout out on the conference I'm trying to put together. Working really hard. I'm supposed to find out tomorrow if we get the venue that I'm trying to work towards. If so, then the final details will be coming out, as well as the lineup and so much outpouring of support for the benefit conference that I'm trying to throw together. All proceeds that come from that thing will go to the families of the Waynoka, the two that perished in doing that search in that Waynoka, Oklahoma fire. So I'm working on getting those dates locked in, secured, and the details out so that people can start getting there. Coming up on the scrap. Next week, we have, actually, the end of this week, we have Bill Carey. I'm excited about that one, followed by Chief Shannon Stone, and then Jay Bonifield. So those are the next 3 guests. So it's loaded up. And Jeremy, you crushed it tonight.
Thank you, brother. You crush it. You crush it every week with this show. And
thank you.
Keep doing it, man. Keep pushing. And you're making a change in the American Fire Service by doing this. So great work, brother.
Hey, and everybody that joined us live, thank you for all the comments. Thank you for all the questions. I hope the tone stays silent unless it's burning. Thank you, Jeremy.
You got it, brother. Anytime.